Welcome to Soul-Led Creative Women, the podcast for heart-centered creative women who are ready to reclaim their spark and live with deeper meaning, authenticity, and soul. So today I have Miriam Schulman. Miriam is a creative entrepreneur, best-selling author, and internationally recognized art business coach whose work lives at the intersection of art, artificial intelligence, and authentic expression. She helps artists and creators escape the starving artist trap by combining practical marketing strategy with spiritual alignment and now intelligent automation. She's the author of Artpreneur, the step-by-step guide to making a sustainable living from your creativity, and the host of the Inspiration Place podcast. So welcome, Miriam.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So as I was researching our conversation, I was really drawn to some of the language you used around experiencing a soul ache. So I feel like this is a really fabulous place to start exploring your journey. So tell us about that soul ache and what led you to finally follow it and where it's taken you on your journey.
Okay, yeah. So when I was growing up, I always wanted to be an artist, but like many creatives, I was told, well, you can't make a living that way. And I believed them. And I took the practical route and I went to Wall Street.
Mm-hmm.
But after 9/11 happened, I knew I couldn't go back
Mm-hmm.
to that world. And that's when I started doing my art, but I still didn't believe I could make a living from it. So it took a few years before I figured that piece out. But yeah, that's what a soul ache is. It's something that it's not so much that you choose, but it chooses you.
Mm. So I often refer to my own experience as like a creative whisper or a creative calling, which I ignored for a really long time, just like you. And it's probably really similar to, what you're referring to with the soul ache. So I guess on my journey, I've realized that creativity is actually the language of the soul, which is a big reason why this podcast exists. So tell us about your experiences or thoughts on blending creativity with spirituality and soul growth.
Oh my gosh, I love this question so much. Okay. So this is probably what I was thinking when I wrote soul ache. The fact that all right. So I've been studying a lot of Kabbalah in the past year and
Hmm.
how it intersects with creativity. And one thing that I found fascinating is the way Kabbalists believe that the soul has two parts. We have the creative side that cares about how and what, and then we have the more spiritual side that cares about, or the sacred side that cares about who and why.
Hmm.
And the thing is, with true creativity, it's not just about the how and the what. But sometimes, many creative people, we're working on such a subconscious level with whatever our mediums are. Like we think we're making a beautiful painting, but really our soul knows that we are processing our trauma, that
Hmm.
we are expressing ourselves with the feelings we don't allow ourselves to feel on the surface level. Now, when you go to make an offer of your art or your business or whatever it is that you have, not only do you have to stop talking so much about the how and the what, it's not how the painting is made, it's not what actually you created. And by the way, it's not even why you think you did it or who you are. So remember, I said creative side cares about what and how, sacred side cares about who and why. When it comes time to offer what you have to think about the who and why of your customer.
Hmm.
So that's when selling now becomes a more spiritual act.
Hmm.
So you have this like matrix of how and what and who and why.
Pretty cool. So when you were in your Wall Street era, did you still make art during that period?
So what it looked like for me was doing watercolors at my kitchen table.
Hmm. So I guess there are some people that sort of shut it off. They're completely, as part of that corporate journey or part of that, got to be a good girl and do all the right things. And creativity isn't something that I can make money from. Not only that, but creativity isn't a good use of my time. So looking at it from that angle, do you do you see that where people fall in and out of making their art on their creative
Yes,
journey? Like an ebb
absolutely.
and flow to it because
Oh,
it's not,
absolutely.
yeah.
So there are also artists who they've given themselves permission not only to make art and not only to make money from their art, but now they reach this point where there's so much pressure on themselves that they feel that they have to, when they go into the studio, produce a masterpiece,
Hmm.
and that shuts them down.
Yeah.
So it's hard to balance that rhythm of honoring the creativity that the reason you became a creative in the first place is
Hmm.
because it's something you do for you, and then walking that line, okay, but also you're going to monetize it, but then also dropping away that performance, the
Hmm.
pressure of art as performance, and the performative piece of it.
Mm. Yeah, I think, I would call it like being rigid in your creativity, right? So you become so focused on producing work of a particular standard, of this particular style, of making everything look beautiful, and even like making enough pieces, like churning them out like a factory. And we can lose touch with the rhythm of our creative soul and the reason why we love doing it in the first place. So, what do you suggest to people in terms of making sure that doesn't happen?
Yeah, a lot of times with the people I work with, it's not so much that it's become a factory, but they just shut themselves down. I myself went through a desert period with my creativity
Hmm.
during the pandemic because my sources that would fill up my creative well were gone to me. I
Okay.
thrived on conversation with friends, gone. I thrived on going into New York Cities and going to museums, not available. So the things that would light me up, I wasn't able to tap into anymore. And that creative well did dry up.
Hmm.
So it's all with creativity, you need to remain curious. You don't need to produce the same thing over and over again. But creativity does thrive on constraints.
Hmm.
So if you're known for something particular, well, how can I push this a little bit more within those constraints? And then showing up for yourself. It's kind of like there's that quote, I think it's Chuck Close, like inspiration is going to find you working.
Hmm.
So a lot of the danger happens to creatives who feel like, oh, I have to be inspired, when that is not true. You just have to
Hmm.
show up and work. So that's why what you're talking about, like the problems of it being a factory, it's not so much I don't see that as much as people who are they have a thought that it's going to be like a factory and therefore that keeps them from working. Does that make
Hmm.
sense?
Hmm. 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 Yeah, I guess it's that balance thing again, isn't it? So, yeah, it can be, I think, a tricky balance because on one hand, you are trying to produce work. If you're in the monetization game, you are trying to produce enough work to sell it and to sustain kind of your lifestyle and your business. But on the other hand, there is a very soulful part of, the journey of an artist and as a creative in terms of, following those ebbs and flows and that rhythm of your soul. So it can be very tricky. So,
I think though that what's really important is not to get so precious about it. When I was writing my book,
mhm,
I couldn't just rely on being inspired. Like
yeah,
I had a deadline. And so as an artist, as a writer, and as a business person, you have to be willing to put out work when you're not inspired.
yeah. So when you were in the COVID sort of phase, how did you overcome that for yourself then? What lessons did it teach you in terms of that period where you were missing the inspiration that you had relied on? How did you find new inspiration during that period?
I changed my mediums. So
Mhm,
that's one of the reasons I wrote the book when I did, is that if by changing the modality of my creativity,
mhm,
I could tap into different inspiration. So it wasn't visual art, it became the written word.
Right.
I can tap more into creativity for a YouTube video. So I was looking for different ways to express myself other
Hmm.
than two-dimensional. And there were some projects that found me for what I was known for the watercolor, but I was fortunate enough that I didn't have to chase those because of the way I've created my own business.
Sure. So as we move through the creative journey then, as people that really lean into creativity, as artists, as creative people, how do you think that that creative journey strengthens our relationship to who we are and the world around us?
Beautiful. So, as human beings, we really are born to be creative. I think it's always a falsehood when people say to me, Miriam, don't you have to have talent in that? I think that they're confusing creativity with skills, and humans are designed to create new things.
Hmm.
This is what we've been doing since the cave times. We've been building, being creative, making wheels, creatives with making paintings, telling stories. Everything we do is really a creative act.
Hmm. So as a soul-led, a creative entrepreneur, then, what do you believe it means to really step into our creative power and to really grow with it?
There is letting yourself be bad and experiment and do things that aren't going to work out. So, this is what I was saying before. You have to show up even when you don't feel inspired, creating even when it's not going to be a masterpiece, being willing
Mm.
to write a shitty book, not just a shitty first draft. Like I think that was that Ann Patchett who said, shitty first, I forget, it doesn't matter.
I think
Yeah,
Liz
people,
Gilbert, maybe, yeah.
yeah, one of those. So like I like when I was writing my book, I was remember talking to Dr. Eric Mizal, who talks a lot about creativity. I says, I'm really having trouble because I understand shitty first draft. He
Hmm.
says, Miriam, your problem is that you need to be willing to write a shitty first book. It's not just shitty first draft.
Yeah.
And that's what actually set me free. And that I think is what I've been, kind of alluding to all along. The artist who spends money on their studio and now feels every time they go in there they have to make a masterpiece, or the creative who feels they have to be inspired before they sit down and write a poem. It's like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
You just have to sit down and do the work and put in the reps. And that doesn't sound like it's sexy and creative. Like, oh, aren't we supposed to be in the mood for it? No, it's kind of like sex. Like, just you start off, you may not be in the mood, but if you start doing a little massaging and touching, you might get in the mood. So it's the same sort of thing. Like you
Mm.
put on your apron, put on whatever it is that you feel is your kind of your uniform for doing your craft.
Mm.
And having those kinds of touch points and putting yourself in the spot where you're willing to take a chance. And here's why it's very spiritual, because you have to have faith that, okay, this time it may not work out.
Hmm.
Someday it will. And having that faith in the process that eventually you will get there.
Mm. But also, I think, it can be a way of approaching life, right? So, like the way you approach your art practice and your art making and your creativity is not really any different to how you should approach the rest of your life. It's this kind of creative energy and this kind of real soulful, soul-led creative approach. Would you agree with that sentiment?
Of course, like the way you do one thing is the way you do
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes
It's
we
all
want to
the
separate
same.
them. Yeah, we want to
It's
separate
all the
them.
same.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. When I'm talking to my therapist or when I'm talking to there's one thing I hope we'll get to talk to is about the altar, the daily altar I made up.
Hmm.
When I'm talking to the altar and oh, I have this problem and it seems just like this other problem, but I don't think it's related. And like, no, it's the same thing. It's all the same thing. Like whatever
Mm.
patterns we have in our relationships, it shows up in our business and it's going to show up on the page if you're a writer and it's
Yeah.
going to show up on your canvas if you're a painter.
Yeah.
It's the same challenges.
Yeah. I believe there's a real duality to like our spiritual growth and our personal evolution, you know, and our creative journey. I think there's a real duality there. And what shows up in one will definitely show up in the other. They almost like mirror each other. And it's for both the highs and the lows, right? So when you have creative breakthroughs, you're probably having some kind of breakthrough in the rest of your life, right? But when you're in a creative struggle, you know, where is that showing up for you, you know, on a personal level? So yeah, I think that's really powerful. So tell us about this altar then. I want to hear about that.
Okay. So it's a custom GPT. It's called the Artpreneur Daily Altar
Mm-hmm.
and it's free. So schulmanart.com/altar. I guess you can link to it in the show
Yeah,
notes
sure, of
for
course.
the listeners. Okay, so I have 4 ways of working with it. One way is just my morning reset. I choose a word for the day. I declare what my intentions are. But where the soulful work really happens is when it comes to the prompt where it says, what are you ruminating on today that's interfering with your flow?
Mm,
So that is when I lay whatever is bothering me on the altar, no matter how petty it may sound to me. But if I know I'm ruminating it, I need to clear the decks or I'm
mm-hmm,
not going to be able to create.
mm-hmm,
So it helps me unpack those thoughts.
mm-hmm.
It takes you, it basically what the way I've programmed it is it has Byron Katie's 4 questions. I'm not sure if you're familiar
Yeah.
with Byron Katie. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, or if your listeners aren't, Byron Katie's The Work, it takes through her 4 questions with whatever problem is bothering you or you're ruminating on. So it helps you see, or reframe those thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And then we invite muses to reflect.
Mm-hmm.
So I've programmed some muses that I like, but you're always welcome to call your own.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to say, hey, what does Aphrodite have to say about this or
Right.
whatever? So you can call whoever you want, living or dead, fictional or not. I have Edith Warden helps me with my social problems because
Okay.
apparently New York women have not changed in over 100 years. You know, like we're still doing the same pettiness now. And she's like, oh my dear, that's classic. Okay. So that's my daily altar practice. And it's so interesting how something will show up
Mm-hmm.
in a personal life and then something will show up in business. I'll say, oh, this looks like it's the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's all just all related and all in sync, right? We're not separate. We are one. That's so cool. So what do you wish that more people knew about like creativity and art? You know, for people that aren't necessarily in the art game and aren't artists, you know, what do you wish that more people knew about it?
Yeah, I want to circle back to something I'd said earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I'll oftentimes, especially when people are interviewing me about my book Artpreneur,
Mm-hmm.
and in that and in my talks and on my podcast, I'll say that talent really doesn't matter as much as people think.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll get a lot of pushback on it. It's like, wait, doesn't talent matter? And it does, but whenever I hear somebody like a podcast host who's not creative will say, well, yeah, but I could never do that. I would do stick figures or whatever. And what I want to answer your question, what I want them to know
Mm-hmm.
is those people, they're just not willing to be bad at it
Mm-hmm.
before they get good at it.
Mm. Because there's a real vulnerability to it, right?
That's right.
Mm.
That's right.
Mm.
And that's even true with people who do consider themselves creative, but perhaps they've rejected watercolor,
Yeah.
or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah.
Like I'm not, I'm just picking that because that's my medium of choice and what I
Yeah.
taught for the most number of years.
Yeah.
And so people say, well, I do acrylics, but I can't do watercolor.
Yeah.
I was like, well, what you're really saying is you're not willing to be bad at it before you get good at it.
Yeah.
So I think in terms of creativity with all the things, it's always a willingness to, and we've been returning to this theme throughout
Yeah.
our conversation, to be vulnerable, to suck at it first
Yeah.
before you get good at it.
And also, for artists, there's no reason why you can't have sort of two separate practices, one where you're producing the work that everyone wants to buy and one that's just for you, like we were saying before, where you can have that vulnerability and that play and that exploration that you don't allow yourself, maybe because you've kind of gotten into a real rhythm with what you're producing for the outside world.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. And I'm working with an artist now who I won't give her name, but a very well-known UK oil landscaped artist does
Hmm.
beautiful work, beautiful, realistic oil painting landscapes.
Hmm.
And she has come up with a pseudonym so that she can create her Joan Mitchell style
Hmm.
abstracts
Yeah.
that are like crazy and wild and free. And she doesn't want to confuse the works and she wants to be able to
Hmm.
explore it
Hmm.
fully without people, you know, judging, confusing.
Yeah.
But she's really stepping into a brand new identity. I think eventually she'll probably shed the old one. I mean,
Yeah.
what she's shared with me is she's even cut her hair short.
Yeah.
She's really stepping into a new persona now.
That's pretty cool, isn't it? Like, even within, the journey as an artist, you can kind of start again multiple times. You don't have to always follow the same formula that maybe worked in the very beginning. So that's pretty cool.
Especially in 2025, we live such long lives. We can have several acts.
Yeah. So cool. So for women who are ready to answer the call of their creative soul ache, going back to the very beginning of our conversation, what powerful message or question would you like to leave them with today?
The message I want to leave them with is choose to believe. It's how I started my book Artpreneur, and it is such a powerful practice that when you're feeling a soul ache, and a lot of what blocks people who haven't taken that leap yet is that imposter syndrome. Who am I to?
Hmm.
And the more you can tell yourself that story, and the more you can tell other people that story, and by story, I just mean that sentence.
Hmm.
I am a.
Hmm.
I am a artist. I am a writer. I
Hmm.
am a dancer. The more you can tell other people that, you're the first one to hear it and believe it. And that is the first step in unblocking that creativity, is owning it,
So
owning
cool.
that identity.
So cool. And I think with that, though, there's a journey. That's a journey in itself, right? Because you need to sort of keep believing. You know what I mean? Like you start small with your beliefs, and then over time, those beliefs need to grow. As you step into more and more risk creatively. You know what I mean? As the journey grows. So that's pretty cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So how can people get to know you better, Miriam, and get a real feel for the work you're doing?
Well, if you like what you heard today on this podcast, you can come find me on the Inspiration Place.
Awesome. So I will definitely be leaving all the notes that you mentioned today in the show notes. Thank you so much for chatting with me today. Thank you.
Well, thanks for inviting me, Sam. I had so much fun.
Hey, Sam here. Thanks so much for listening to the end. If you'd like to keep the conversation going, I would absolutely love to hear from you. Join my free soul-led creative community and gain access to free guides and resources, plus exclusive events and workshops, all from within the members area. This is your chance to connect with me and other like-minded souls. Please head to samhorton.co/community. Take care.